Hello again, everybody. Time once again for Michael's record collection. I'm very honored to be joined today by half of a new duo called eMolecule, Kelly Nordstrom. Kelly, thanks for your time today.
Oh, Michael, it's my pleasure to be here. Nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you. You and Simon Collins, who folks around the world may have heard of his dad, Phil. You guys have come together and you've worked together many times in the past, but your new duo, eMolecule, has an album out called, or coming out February 10th, called The Architect. And this is a pretty fascinating record. It's got a little bit of everything in it: electronica, it's got rock, it's got progressive elements. There's a lot of different flavors to this. And I wanted to just kind of get at the first question I have. Can you just maybe walk me through sort of the concept of eMolecule in general, how you sort of came together and decided to make this specific style of music, and The Architect conceptually as a record?
Absolutely. Yes, this project, I think, really spawns from a desire to find and express our true selves in an authentic way and an honest way. And through our lifetimes, we've gone through many things, and when we came together almost 20 years ago, we became quite close as friends, as well as musical collaborators. And that camaraderie and bond formed a relationship, which was also a vehicle for us to figure out who we were as human beings on this planet. And the project eMolecule is a culmination of these life experiences and many of the things that we've done, and also the best of vehicle so far, at least for myself, I can say, to be fully authentic as a musician, as an artist, and to explore what life's all about. The concept for this particular album is also right along those lines. In a general sense, I refer to the concept as a story of darkness to light, good over evil, an expression of the great story that comes from our past, that's been told from generation to generation. So not necessarily an original thing, but our effort to express that story as honestly through our own experiences as possible. So we did create a character to do this,
Mm-hmm.
and described a character who came to power and came to corruption and succumbed to the desires of the flesh. And through this process, lived dangerously and flew too close to the sun, and was given a terminal diagnosis as a result of his behavior and experimentation. And so this change in circumstance spawns the spiritual transformation which occurs, and we explore through the second half and ending of the album.
Okay. Yeah, and it's interesting because you both sing on this record, and is that sort of the dark versus the light thing, or is it just kind of depending on what you guys think sounds better in the recording studio?
Well, Simon was always primarily the singer and the main face for the characters and the different sides of the character. But as we got into it, uh, it we began to experiment with using my spoken word as his inner dialogue, the inner conflicts and expressions, which in some cases, were some of the darker things. But it was that was the role that the spoken word ended up playing, I believe, in the storyline in terms of the quotations.
Okay. So one of the things that I like to ask anybody that I have on the show is I kind of want to get a sense of where you started. So what was your first favorite record that you really fell in love with?
Well, I'd have to say Iron Maiden's Worldwide Live for me. That's where I discovered driving guitars, just driving music, um, with featuring harmonizing, dueling guitars, and that really just got me excited about my own musical journey, and interested in the guitar itself. So that's it was also, now I realize, an example of very progressive music writing as well.
Hmm.
And so that, along with the sound of the crowd, that it was a live album, so a live double album. So there's so much for me to sink my teeth into, and also the experience of the crowd in the recording also had an impact on me as well, and the energy that was created in those rooms for those recordings uh, inspired me to want to connect with people in my music.
Okay, good. That's an interesting. I wouldn't have expected that, but that's an interesting first one. You guys, you and Simon, along with Dave Kersner and Matt Dorsey, you put out a terrific album as Sound of Contact in 2013, and that was, I think, that was my favorite album of that year. Can you just walk me through the formation of that group, and then ultimately why things kind of fell apart, and we only got the one record?
Sure. Simon and I were working on things for Eucatastrophe, and actually living together at the time, and starting to experiment with different writing ideas. And I was always kind of working on poetry, and working on riffs and stuff like that, not necessarily together or as a collaboration, but just in general. And the fact we're living together, of course, we're quite close, and sharing each other's ideas. At the time, I was working more like kind of full time, supporting him in his solo career, and helping manage things, as well as um, uh, collaborating on his solo recordings, Eucatastrophe, for example.
Hmm.
And one day, I was reading a sci-fi book, came across this word dimensionaut, and it's like, wow, what a cool word. And so from there, we started talking about ideas surrounding that, and how cool a storyline with the dimensional traveler would be. And so that was really the first inception of Sound Contact. It was really more a dimensionaut theme at that time.
Hmm.
And Simon had mentioned, well, before we even got to talking about who we might collaborate with, we did start writing some material, but he was expressed an interest in working with a dedicated keyboard synth specialist.
Hmm.
And so Dave Kersner's name came up, and I hadn't met him, but I was trusting Simon's judgment on things. And so uh, we actually originally collaborated with Dave for the first time on a single, which was a cover of Keep It
Keep It
Dark.
Dark. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
so
a
that was,
fantastic cover. That
thank
was
you.
where I first became aware of Simon as an artist, actually.
Oh, right on, yeah. And that was my first meeting and introduction to working with Dave as well.
Hmm.
So from there, Sound of Contact was born out of that. Those people coming together, um, and made most of the record in that configuration. Matt Dorsey came along to assist with things as I was taking my leave for personal reasons at the time. I had my hands full in various capacities, and just wasn't the right time for me to be able to follow through with that,
Hmm.
unfortunately. In retrospect, I probably would have made different decisions. And if I'd perhaps had certain conversations with certain people, things might have changed and turned out differently. But it was what it was. So they continued on, and well, they toured without me, and eventually the band stopped for reasons I wasn't really a part of, so I can't really comment on.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, that was just it's interesting you say you would have made different decisions because like I said, it's just one it was my favorite release that year and it was really well done. Were you looking to take it in a different direction in terms of instrumentation or you know what kind of ideas did you have that they kind of vary you know sort of deviated
Well,
from?
without getting into it too much, I think the dynamic certainly changed when it went from Simon and I, brainstorming broader concepts to things becoming more refined.
Hmm.
And so that did change things in a way that I'm not sure was entirely comfortable. But ultimately, the reasons for me leaving were outside of the band, and so.
Hmm.
Um, but I guess with some different perspectives, I may have decided to try and handle the situation differently. So.
Okay. Now, You Catastrophe, you've mentioned that a couple times. That happens to be my favorite Simon solo album. Was that the first album collaboration you had with Simon?
Uh, Full, yes, that was the first full record I had a chance to work with him on, for him on. There was a little bit of co-writing on that, which was fantastic for me to get my start getting more involved. And but yeah, that was really the first one, and working with um, Kevin Turco on that was a real treat as well. What an amazing producer he was, and that album went on to win a Juno here in Canada for best engineered album of that year. So it was a real honor to be a part of that.
Yeah, one of the tracks that sticks out when you mention engineering is I'm not sure if you're pronouncing it Eco or Echo, but that's my favorite track on the album, actually.
Yeah, that's a very cool track. We did end up playing that album live quite a bit, and had a lot of fun with that.
Yeah. I definitely recommend checking that one out. Now, getting back to eMolecule, when you and Simon write, how do the two of you write? What's the process, or is there more than one way you do it?
There's more than one way, certainly. We're very good at realizing and collaborating with each other's ideas that have been started, and helping determine where it could go, and arranging things together. So sometimes it happens with um, the initial idea coming from one. Usually it's a strong theme, whatever that might be. Usually a strong melody with some chord changes, or maybe it can be like standalone riffs that whatever it might be. There's lots of different types of themes that can emerge, and then we collaborate and go from there. But we also spend some time improvising uh, together as well, recording improvised sessions and going through that to harvest good material. And so the songs like "The Turn" are a good example of a song that came from a improvisation, and that we then went back and built an arrangement out of those ideas.
Hmm.
And another example is eMolecule, which was largely arranged, and had a demo recording of it already quite well put together. And Simon helped take that to the next level, along with Robbie Bronneman, who we worked with at the time during the beginning phases of making the album. Um, and so that there was collaboration on that in the end as well, which really took it to the next level. Songs like um, Time for Truth were very true collaborations, where it was an idea started, I think, but by Simon, and he like was playing on the keyboard, and I literally kind of nudged him over, and kept playing from that like chord progression he had into one that was like an adaptation, and then we shared the vocal duties on that one as well. So yeah, there's really no one particular form, but I think what makes us successful as collaborators and a duo is how respectful we are to allowing things to go in the most ideal direction we can for the music,
Hmm.
without a personal agenda. We just like to try and make the song or this piece of music or this concept album the best that we can.
Hmm.
And we're open to each other's ideas.
Did you start with the story and then start writing music, or did the music come and then the story, or did it kind of happen all at the same time?
It was again a combination.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a lot, there's always a lot of music floating around, so it's like that's kind of a given. So um, the song eMolecule actually was spawned from the sessions on Becoming Human,
Hmm.
where I was in England there working with Robbie Broneman and Simon on tracking those guitars, and had some downtime and started just producing this piece, which turned out to be eMolecule. I basically did it in my bedroom where I was staying there, and that was a strong enough demo. It came back, years later, to be the catalyst for coming together as a duo. So there was music already, but what actually solidified the album was, and the band actually was the concept in a way,
Hmm.
because uh, it started to, even though at the time in 2020, I'd come over to Ireland to spend time with Simon working on another solo album. That was the premise of the trip. Um, through our just where were at as artists and people at the time, how much music we had around, um, and the strength of the song eMolecule, we decided that we wanted to do something that was more of a band duo feel.
Hmm.
And from there, we set out to write the concept. So at the moment eMolecule was born, we began writing the concept.
Got it. Well, it's interesting that you brought that song up in particular because that's what spawned the question because it's an almost 11-minute long song, but very few lyrics in it. It doesn't seem sparse lyrically, but when you go and you read the lyric sheet, you go, there's not very many words in this song.
It's true, and I generally write that way and hear and experience music that way as more of an instrumentalist. Just a natural thing. I always hear music, um, and so that's generally how my music is written, is instrumentally first. So it was essentially an instrumental song, but I also wanted to introduce this idea of chanting and fuse this idea of almost like a Gregorian chant sort of approach to the vocals, harmonized, and therefore it wasn't really about delivering a long, sophisticated lyrical concept as a strong idea that was, repeatable.
All right. So the lineup is just you and Simon. Simon handles vocals, drums, keys, sound design, and programming. You handle guitars, bass, vocals, keys, and sound design and programming. Was there ever a discussion of bringing someone else in, or was it always just going to be the two of you?
It was always going to be the two of us. I believe the that's the a kind of a commitment at this point to um, work that way. That being said, I suppose you never know, but I think that this is the style of writing and the lifestyle of being an artist that we're both wanting to pursue at this point. He's, of course, I'm sure, going to do more solo material, and I may as well, I suppose, but that's
Mhm.
it. Well, for the first time. But I personally like the fact that it's two. I like the dynamics of energy, and and because we can cover things instrumentally and vocally between us, I don't see us really necessarily reaching out for any reason with the project and molecule. There could be some offshoot that could be a collaboration, I'm sure, but eMolecule feels like a duo.
Okay. The reason I ask that is because, I think typically when you set out to write a record, you might have some plan that at some point you might want to play some of those songs live. And is the discussion held at that point, or do you not worry about it and cross that bridge, if and when you get to it?
It is across that bridge if and when, but we do have instrument players lined up to play with us live. So we're certainly hoping that that opportunity comes along. But I think the context would be that we'll put together a group, whatever it takes to perform it live. But as a recording production duo, we'll stay as just the two of us.
Okay. Well, and you have a good model for that because Phil, Mike, and Tony did the Genesis thing, and then they had people waiting in the wings to go out on tour with them to fill out the sound live.
Right. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about some of these songs. The first track that you worked on was eMolecule. It's the first song on the album. It was the first single, which I don't know how much you guys put into that, how much of that is just an inside out music decision, but it's very strange to have a 10-minute and 43-second single.
Yes, that is something that we were comfortable with, but quite honestly, Thomas Faber at Inside Out was quite adamant that we should not pursue things and move forward trying to put something together that we think would be most best received. That the best thing we could do, the most commercial thing we could do, was something uncommercial. So we were quite comfortable doing that, and really behind the idea, and also it goes hand in hand with the whole premise and what I've been saying as well, and it being an honest portrayal of who we are and an authentic offering, and we're not trying to make sure that things are going to fit into a radio format.
Yeah. Plus, if you want to get your concept out there, you don't want to put part 8 of the concept out there first, right?
I suppose. Well, there's that too. That a good point. I mean, the singles that we've released aren't in order,
Mm-hmm.
so it was kind of a coincidence that eMolecule
Yeah.
was first. That being said, it's the only place it could go in the album.
Yeah.
Really, it was the right place for it to be, but kind of a coincidence, a happy coincidence, I should say, that it's the self-titled track and the opening track and the first single and all.
Yeah. The Architect, the title track. Tell me about the atmospheric part with the spoken words and the echoey effects.
Well, one of the things we like to do is juxtapose. So in our arrangement concepts, the middle part worked quite well because the rest of the song is quite intense and riffy and heavy. So it was a perfect opportunity to break it down and atmospherically use some acoustic guitar. And that piece of acoustic guitar is something that had actually been around for many years, that's never found a home, and it just fit perfectly in there. So that spawned the part, and it was a good opportunity for us to also express the inner dialogue of our character as a child. And so as I do my spoken word in there, it's flashing through thoughts of formative statements that have been said, and things that have had a heavy impact on our character's development into a young adult.
Got it. So when Mastermind comes along at track 4, this is the third single and the second longest song, 8.5 minutes. So 2 of the longest songs end up being pre-released. I don't know if you call them singles anymore. They're pre-released tracks.
Videos. Yeah, I don't know either.
Is this the part where he sort of comes to his full power?
Yeah, maybe not. Yeah, I'd say full power at that point, and and the full darkness of the his regime is felt, and so at that point, yeah, there is a sense that he's in control of everything.
Um, the next one I want to talk about is "The Turn," a very interesting song. Tell me a little bit about this "Bits of Bone" vocal section. It's an
Yeah,
interesting.
this was that I can take credit for that one, and I got question marks from everybody who heard that. That came from some free poetic writing. I tend to write things in a poetic kind of format, and then sometimes we can use that and transform it lyrically and such. At that moment, we were looking for the character in the shadows, the darkness, toiling over his, misfortune. And at this point, our character has been notified that he has a terminal illness, and so it's his descent into madness.
Mm,
It's really that he's not accepted the situation. Let's just put it that way.
yeah.
And just expressing maddened thoughts that are perhaps coming from fragments of other dimensions.
Okay. The thing I wrote down for that song was "Darkness," and then the thing I wrote down for the next song, "Awaken," is that it brings the light back into the album after the darkness of the turn. So are we now starting to get to that sort of not the final solution or the final resolution of the story, I should say, but we're starting to turn the corner a little bit here and become aware that the things that have been going on are not acceptable or not the way that he kind of foresaw things when he started out.
Absolutely. In fact, sort of through the turn and between the turn and awaken, there is an attempt for him to take his life in our storyline, and with the track "Awaken," we have the guardian angel, if you will, or some mysterious force or higher power it comes to his assistance in his most dire moment, where he's actually decided to leave this world and not face things, not to face the things that he's done, and feeling sorry for himself, and through the song "Awaken," he has the beginning of his spiritual awakening,
Mm,
a sense that there's something greater than himself.
yeah. The song "Beyond Belief," which follows that is the second single that was pre-released, and to me, this one sounds the most likely candidate to have come from a Simon solo album. It's a catchy song. It's certainly a much more obvious single, I guess. If you're thinking in terms of singles rather than pre-release tracks, I think it's a little bit more obvious to release as a single than the other two.
Yeah, we always felt that way too. And yes, it was uh, originally headed for a solo album, and he largely did write most of those parts. So you're right on all those points. And yeah, it always felt like it was probably one of the more accessible tunes, and a bit more upbeat, not dark for
Mm-hmm.
once, and and hopeful. And so yeah, it's true. So we knew we did want to get it out there, and not to go against what we're saying. We're not trying to be contrived, but it was what it was. Everybody who'd heard it said it was quite catchy. So we want people to notice us, and so it was clear that that was on the list to get out there. So we put it at number two.
Yeah. And I want to be clear that it doesn't sound like it doesn't belong on the album. It does fit in really well with where it is on the record, but it was that, if you're looking, if you put your, and no one should ever do this, but if you put your record company exec hat on for a minute and you're looking for the single, that seems like a more obvious one than the other two that came out.
Yeah, definitely. Uh, But that being said, yeah, we're happy with the balance so far, and we've got at least two more singles coming. So
That's good.
there's there's quite a variety.
I'm assuming one of those is going to hit the day that the album is released.
That's right.
Yeah. Do you know which one it is, or do you want to say?
I think I can say it is the album titled, the title track, "The Architect."
Okay. Good. Good. That's a good one. I think people are really going to like the atmosphere in that one. So, um,
Right on. Thanks.
so somebody gets this album, maybe they buy the CD, maybe they just download the album off iTunes or whatever, Amazon Music or whatever, and they sit, crank it up, listen to it start to finish. What do you want the listener to take away from this experience?
I would like for them to feel that not much time has passed, perhaps. I'd like them to be entertained. I would like them to be happy and excited. For me, music fills me with an energy and excitement when I connect with it. So I'd like to people to walk away with more energy than they had before.
Okay, that's an interesting answer. I ask that all the time, and I always am interested to see what people are going to say, and that was a new one. So thank you for that.
My pleasure.
So you mentioned it before, if and when. Do you think that these songs may be performed live at some point, or have those discussions even taken place yet?
They are taking place. Everybody involved would like to play live for sure. We just have to make sure that it's the right logistical situation,
Hmm.
and so I'm hopeful and very hopeful that it's going to happen. I just can't say when, and we just have to be patient for now. But we'll see. The demand has to be there, and other things have to line up as well. So first things first, I guess. We'll get the album out, and we've got some more promotion to do, and we'll see where we're at.
Yeah. Were there songs that were maybe worked on that didn't quite make it through the process and get on the album?
Yes, there's several that didn't make it in various stages of being built up. There's one or two that are fairly far along. I'd probably like to, start certain things from scratch, but we've got a good start on a second album already. So, and lots of new material coming out already between us as well. So, yeah, it won't be too long before we'll be well into our second record.
Awesome. That's great news. Kelly Nordstrom, eMolecule. The album is called The Architect. It comes out February 10th on Inside Out Music. It's I think it's something that's going to appeal to people who like guitars, people who like keyboards, people who like electronic music, people who like progressive music. I think there's a little bit of something of all of that. It's a really, to me, a modern take on progressive rock, and I think that it will appeal to, like I said, everybody that kind of enjoys any or all of those genres. I think it'll be something that you will like. Where, Kelly, are you guys active online at all? Do you have a website dedicated for eMolecule?
Yes, we've got eMoleculemusic.com, and that will take you everywhere. We're on all the usual channels on Facebook at eMolecule.official, also Instagram, Twitter, Spotify, and yeah, we're getting out on some of the other ones too. But the main stuff, we're all there.
Yeah. All right. That sounds good. Kelly Nordstrom, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate you telling me about this record. Hope it does really well for you. It's a very interesting album. I think if folks who have listened to Simon's solo albums in the past, there's a little something in there for you, but it goes beyond that. I think this truly is a collaboration between the two of you, and how your styles kind of gel together.
Thanks, Michael. It's been a real pleasure being on the show. Thanks for having me.